valuable is your data? I mean, when you stop and think about that, and I'm sure you're going to gasp when you say, oh my God, of course it's valuable. That's why it's my data. Well, our next guest specializing in getting it back for you once you think it's gone. And we have an interesting story about this, which is why we've invited the CEO of LC Technology on the program, Dave Zimmerman. Welcome into Tomorrow. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Dave. How are you?
I'm doing fine, too. It's a pleasure to meet you. It's kind of interesting. We're both Floridians. You up the road a piece in Clearwater from our Miami studios, and we have to come here to meet each other. You have saved our broadcast, and interesting quick story, if I'm capable of a quick story, is that we had a drive that Chris reminds me was a lot older than I thought. Would you say about 6-7 years or so, give or take? And hard drives, it's not if they'll fail, it's when they'll fail. Well, this particular one that we thought was being backed up in our control room that had critical files on it died a couple of weeks ago. We couldn't find anyone to fix it for us until we found you. And you said, hey, let me have my team of techs give it a shot and see what we can come up with. Well, all of a sudden, we then get an overnight package from your team. Here you go. We've managed to image it and recover as much data as possible. And here you go. And now Chris is not fired. Darn, yeah, he wishes. Because we've got our data back. And first of all, publicly, thank you. And thank you and your team for working what I understand was a whole lot longer than you thought it would take to get this stuff.
It was a little bit more difficult than the average case, but it took a couple of days to actually get the drive imaged and pull the data back off of the disk. One of the more troublesome recoveries that we run into.
And we don't know what caused it, right? I mean, we're assuming a power surge or a lightning hit or who knows, but the drive failed and it became impossible for us to read in every possible way we tried.
And it happens. And it's not, it's not always predictable. You don't know when it's going to happen. And, that's definitely... You back your stuff up, multiple copies, redundancy, but...
We talk on the show all the time. In fact, I don't think a week goes by where we don't remind our audience, back up, back up, back up. If it's important, you've got to have backup and multiple, as you said, backups. And then we're like the shoe salesman's kids who run barefoot. We thought it was being backed up, but then it turned out the backup wasn't doing its job. And so that's a great reminder for our entire audience. You may think you're backing up, and you may think that the hard drive you have is wonderful and going to last forever. Wrong. They're not designed to last forever.
That's true. And under ideal conditions, a drive will last an awfully long time. But there are a lot of environmental factors. Could be humidity, heat, dropping it, knocking it over on the desk.
I was told it didn't happen by anyone on our staff, but that happens in businesses and homes all the time.
It happens a lot.
And I imagine you see a lot of those kind of drives, too, that are physically damaged. And you can tell, well, here's what happened, and here's what we're able to do. And probably some, thank God not this one, but some, is it possible that you're unable to do anything with some drives, depending on the kind of damage?
It depends. I mean, we typically don't do clean room type disassembly. Physical problems, like if it was in a fire or something like that, normally it's a logical error, file system problem, firmware issues, but we also make products for consumers that can overcome some of that stuff as long as the drive is not that bad.
Yeah, for example, we've learned now that you not only rescue data, but you can make tools. You make tools to help rescue data. So tell us about some of that.
Well, we make a lot of the data recovery products that are out there on the market. We make the Rescue Pro products for SanDisk. We have been doing their data recovery globally for about 14 years.
I did not know that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we... some of the other companies that do data recovery, like Kroll OnTrack, we make their easy recovery products for them as well. There's a number of other companies we make products for them as well in about 24 different languages. So we do support markets globally as well. Working with some of these manufacturers like SanDisk, we do have to address those markets as well.
Yeah.
But
you got to know what you're recovering and what kinds of formats, and sometimes language plays a role in what you're trying to help people rescue.
Definitely.
Wow. Well, aside from suggestions of backup, what other things, maybe some tips or hints that you can quickly share with us in our remaining minute?
Well, redundancy. That's the big thing. With hard drives, it's one thing. With flash, it's completely different. It's a different way of doing things. Most of the issues that we see recovering data from flash, USB connectors with thumb drives, when you unplug it and plug it in 150, 200, 300, 500 times, eventually those connections break.
And what about the static electricity problem too? People say, I never really stop any drive. I just unplug it. That's not a good idea.
That's never a good idea. Always safely eject the device. Static is a problem, and we see it. I think especially with micro SD cards.
Wow.
And they're so tiny, they're difficult to work on. Compact flash cards are, probably a little more reliable.
But you'll
robust.
recover data from even micro SD cards. I mean, if somebody's got important family pictures, it's the only place they are, and they can't read them now. You'll do your best to help get that kind of stuff off of a micro SD card.
Micro SD cards, SD cards, compact flash. If there are even controller issues on some of the cards, we actually pull the memory chips off the circuit board, put them into special sockets, emulate the controllers, and pull the data, image the memory, and pull the files out of the raw memory dump.
Wow.
It's a little bit complex, but I enjoy it. I love doing it. I've been doing it since the mid-'90s.
So it's a challenge that you accept. And I'm sure it gives you the warm fuzzies, not nearly as much as it gives your clients the warm fuzzies when you've been able to solve their data problems.
Yeah, we save people's memories.
Yeah. Oh, good point. That's a great slogan.
Yeah.
Love it. lc-tech.com. We'll link you there too, of course, when you visit us at intotomorrow.com. Dave, thanks not only for joining us, but please thank your team as well of techs that worked literally round the clock for more than a couple of days to salvage our data. And I'm glad we found you. And I'm glad we were able to meet up here at CES. And we'll end up both heading back to Florida at one point.
Yes. And glad to be able to help and do this for you.
It's our pleasure to have you on the show. And again, thank you. Dave Zimmerman is the CEO of LC Technology. Again, lc-tech.com. We're back with more from Las Vegas and the International CES 2014 edition. I'm Dave Graveline on the Advanced Media Network.